Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe, with yet another day in our 31 days of horror. Today, day number 8. I thought, you know what? We're out of the first week. It's time to start hitting some Halloween movies. So I thought I would start. Remember, this is some of my favorite directors, and that makes it a little tougher when you're delving into a franchise. Where do you start? Well, we'll probably start at the back end and work our way up. I'm sorry, but David Gordon, I can't count as one of my favorite directors. I can't. So I probably won't be touching any of the latest trilogy, right? But I thought, where do I start? So I thought, I started looking at the back end, looking forward, and then I thought, what about H20, Halloween 20 years later? And so I pulled it up on IMDb, and I forgot Steve Miner directed this. If you would have just asked me right off who directed Halloween 20 years later, I'd have been like, dang, I would have been stuck. It wouldn't have come to my mind like most. And I saw Steve Miner's name, and I'm thinking, my God, Friday the 13th Part 2. And then I discovered, if you would have asked me who directed Friday 3, I would not have said Steve Miner. If you said 2, I would have said Steve Miner. And then you got House, and you've got Warlock, and I do believe Warlock is one of them. I'm pretty sure Warlock's one of them. Anyways, love this guy, man. I totally forgot he did H20, and I thought, a couple nights ago, I decided, you know what? It's been a long time since I've seen H20. In light of the newest trilogy, let's go back to a movie that originally leapt off, not the first one, the second one, and take a re-look at it with a lot of time in between, and Rob's movies and then this new trilogy, right? I have to say, man, so I dug in, I pulled it out, man. It's one of the greatest purchases I had so much fun with this. It's not without its issues. Maybe a little too much Scream influence going on here. It is 98, so Scream has had its influence, and it's seen on here. Yeah, Warlock. Yeah, I wrote it down here. Warlock is one of them that Steve Miner directed. Jamie Lee Curtis, of course. Josh Hartnett is their son, and Adam Arkin, who's an educator there at the private school. Who she is in love with, Jamie Lee, that is, who of course is reprising her role as, of course, Laurie Strode, but she has since faked her death and changed her name to, is it Kate? Something Kate. Why can't I remember? I was also surprised that he had no idea that, Okada, the cinematographer, also on this one, also was the guy who shot Phantasm 2 for Coscarelli. Go figure. And Patrick Lussier was edited this, and now it all makes sense. Him and Todd Farmer wanted to push their script to move Rob Zombie's for a third piece, but keep it in his world, but sort of bring it back to the nostalgic Halloween vibe. And you can hear Tom Atkins talk about that on the Halloween 3 Season of the Witch commentary track towards the very end of it. And that always just brings sadness to my heart that never got off the ground. A lot of reasons probably for that, but this makes sense now because he edited H20, and it would have really been neat to see him come back into the fold, but as a director this time. So, anyways, H20. So the movies don't make sense, or the movies are all sort of cut off after Part 2, and there is some reference to Part 2 and the burning in the hospital. But really what you have is a Laurie Strode who has since faked her death and is now the head of school, really. Oh, it says head of school at this private school in California. And so that's where she's been the last 20 years of her life. And she has a son, Josh Hartnett, of course, plays the character, right? And LL Cool J is your security guard. It's pretty awesome. And they bring, I'm pretty sure they bring her back, the original nurse from the original film, in the beginning. This is our opening scene, actually, where Michael shows up at her house and looking for information because she's been working with Loomis all these years. Now, unfortunately, Loomis Donald Pleasance is gone by now, unfortunately. And so this film really, there is a vacant place in this film, and it is the loss of Donald Pleasance. But it manages to do all right. The opening scene is great. It really feels, I mean, it opens up with Sandman, and it just feels Halloween, man. I mean, I was impressed, man. I mean, I'm like sitting up in my seat, and I'm like, I don't remember feeling like this watching H2O before. Now, obviously, once you get out to California, once you start getting with the kids, and then, you know, that Scream vibe kicks in there, and you're like, okay, this really isn't Halloween anymore. But it is, right? I'll tell you what I loved. I loved Laurie Strode's character. I love her character. I think is more convincing, way more convincing here than it is with in the first Halloween. Way more convincing. Elements of that character come over to the new trilogy, but I just thought she did a much better job. I just thought it was more convincing. She's been hiding out the last 20 years. She's still inflicted with this. She's passed it on to her son. He feels it and he's done with it. And eventually her worst fears come and Michael shows up 20 years later. Actually, there was 17 plays in here. 17 plays in here. I can't remember how now off the top of my head. But anyways, so basically the whole school is getting ready for this trip, but a few of them, for various reasons, are forced to stay back. They can't go, and of course this gives us an empty school, a small handful of kids, and a final fight till the death at the end between Laurie and Michael. And Michael, his mask, that whole issue, that's a flaw here, obviously. But if you look past some of the obvious things, there's something, whenever you just remove yourself from Rob's movies, remove yourself from the new trilogy, and really go back and just throw on 4, throw on 5, any one of these older Halloweens, it's like a bygone moment that's has been forgotten. And even in H2O, it's there a bit. There's just this idea that this was Halloween. Now I get it. It's not, quite as good as the earlier ones before this, but there was a real serious attempt here to rejuvenate the series, or at least bring it to a finality. And considering where the series was at that point in time, and putting a final exclamation point on it by bringing it out 20 years and leaping off, not the first film, but leaping off the second film. And with all the gripes and complaints I do have of the new trilogy, I'll say this. I absolutely love Laurie's character. I hate it in parts 1 and 2. I absolutely love it in Halloween Ends. That feels more natural to me. Just like her character feels more natural in H2O. I just think it's more convincing. The final fight and the fleeing from the school, and of course the ultimate moments between her and her brother. It just harkens back to a different time. And H2O, as imperfect and flawed as a film as it is, it does tap in a little bit into that feeling that we used to get. For me, going to the movie theater almost every new Halloween. It's just, I don't know. So I'm not gonna talk anymore. But Janet Leigh too. Janet Leigh's in here, so there's great moments, and I think this is the first time Janet Leigh was in a movie since The Fog. So her and Jamie Lee Curtis get back together again, and there's some wonderful scenes with them. And I did a young Joseph Gordon-Levitt at the very beginning. I forgot about some of these people in this movie. It's funny what you forget when you put some real amount of time between you and these films. So as October rolls on, and you start digging into your Halloween marathon, or maybe it's some streaming platform that's doing it for you, I would rather just go pull stuff off my shelf and do it. But that's just me. Take a revisit of something like H2O, and if it's been a long time, see how it vibes with you. Maybe different, especially in light of the new trilogy, which I'm sorry, but I can gripe all I want about, because I do have it in physical media on my shelf that license me to gripe as much as I want about this trilogy. Anyways, Halloween, man. Halloween. Day number 9 is coming, as always, man. Go Bills.
This is not a dream. We might be useful to you.